Could we get a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting? Supervisor Brammer, second by Supervisor McDonald. All those in favor?
Aye.
There's before I start, there's a trivia question on this agenda, and it's called LUCA, and I just wondering if by the end of the meeting, if you don't Google it, can figure out what it is.
Chris Craig. Diamond.
Very good. You're on, my friend.
All right, well, most of the town supervisors should have received a notice on Luca, so they should be familiar with it, so. I don't see any of them nodding, so, okay, here we go. There's a resolution request for consideration here. As you recall, last month we talked about the aerial imagery update that the county is participating with the state of New York, and Resolution 35 of 2017 authorized the expenditure of $69,700 for the purchase of enhancements to the aerial imagery. And that resolution also said the funds would be paid out in 2018, which they're due by February 8th of 2018. So you all left it up to the budget officer to find the money. And so Frank and I have had a number of discussions, and last month we were able to move $30,000 from unexpensed salary into the account. And talking with the budget officer and with the treasurer's office, we came up with a way to find the rest so it doesn't impact the 2018 budget. So this resolution request is to appropriate those funds into the appropriate code in this year's funding, so as to minimize impact on the 2018 budget.
Good. We get a motion, Matt, and second by Mr. Stroh. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
All right,
Passed.
thank you. Now, to the trivia question of the day, the LUCA, or the local census, local updated census address operation. Most of the towns, or actually all the towns, should have received a notice under this program for either opt-in or opt-out of updating the census points for each parcel. Typically, the county has done this through the GIS, and so what we have told some of the towns that have called us is that we'd be handling it at the county level, and so to that end, there's a form here for the chairman to sign. It doesn't require a resolution or anything, but I just kind of wanted to update everybody. What really happens here is the state of New York hopefully will be doing all of this, because they do it quarterly right now. They send all the updated address points to the Census Bureau, who indicates that they are too understaffed to separate out the residential uses from the non-residential uses. So we've had discussions, or Sarah's had discussions on the listserv for the state, the GIS group. Just came back from a conference in Lake Placid where they talked about it. And the state is trying to make it happen where the state will send the updated address points to the Census Bureau in a format that they can use. If not, this program allows us to do that. If we don't opt in, then we can't do the updates at a later date if the state updates don't work. So for those town supervisors that have been seeing this, I know I've received a call from your staff, and so it'll be handled at the county level as it was in 2010. This is to update the Tiger files, which determines where a questionnaire gets mailed to. So that's really just an update, and I know you've all had bated breath about what LUCA was, so you've now been updated. So.
And the short of it is we don't have to do anything.
The question becomes, I would have someone look at it at your level, because there is there's three options, and one is to opt into having another agency or higher form of government undertake the address point update, which is us. So you may have to fill out the form to say, we want to participate, but it'll be done at the county level. Sarah's the one to really talk to about all of this update, because she is in constant contact with these folks and with the state as to what we may have to do or may not have to do. As most of you are aware, through the enhanced 911 system, we have been doing an update and assigning address points to every parcel in the county, actually every doorway in the county, and identifying whether they're commercial, residential, or mixed use. But we provide those to the state on a quarterly basis, so their records are up to date. So hopefully the state will handle this and we won't have to get too involved with it. That's all I have.
Good. Any discussion, any further comment? Great, I think, Ed, are you on that? Great, wonderful.
Did he want
I didn't want to rush Wayne off the seat.
Did Wayne not?
I even warmed it up for you.
Wait, thanks, Wayne.
The second one.
Yep.
He explained both together. Okay, but it's not on this. He's asking for contingent.
Yes,
funds.
yes, that's what he was explaining, they had to find the funds for it.
Okay, but it wasn't here, that's it.
We don't have to.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Edward,
Good morning.
go for it.
Okay, ready to go on Monday morning. It's great to be up here with our committee this morning. Wanted to run down some of our activities during this past month in our particular area, and pointing out that we've talked about for a period of time here, but we have launched our new loan fund from EDC, which was it's a collaboration on two fronts. One, we received half of that $500,000 is $250,000 grant from ESD. The balance is from 4 banks, area banks that have contributed money to make up the $500,000. Also, it is a partnership with Walter Young and the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning in Warren County, and also it'll be encompassing portions of Essex County as well as required by ESD to have some kind of regional impact. It really is geared for small businesses in our particular area. We're looking at around a $25,000, $30,000 to $35,000 loan, which can be supplemented by our regular LDC funds from Warren County that Peter chairs. And in this particular area, this will go for new equipment, it will go for capital, as well as expansion of property or expansion of a building, and it bridges a gap. We've had a couple of inquiries from northern Warren County that we will be working with and reviewing their application. The underwriting will be undertaken by the New York State Business Development Corporation as required by the agreement there. So that is our new fund. Again, that can supplement our regular Warren County LDC fund for projects as well in
And
this area.
the term of those loans?
Terms of the loans depends on their request. It's kind of like when you go to borrowing, the usefulness determines the amount of length of borrowing. The same thing with properties, pieces of equipment and so forth, and the types of security that are offered. But again, we again provide this as a more flexible loan to a small business. They may already have an existing loan, and they may have gotten to the bank and said, can I get an expansion? And they said, well, pursuant to our federal regulations or state regulations, we're unable to accomplish this, so they move forward and come to us as well. We're working closely with our area banks, Glens Falls National Bank, and particularly in the North Country, and along with a couple of other banks in that area. But the loan obviously is available for anywhere in Warren County.
Supervisor Sokol, did you have a
Thank you,
question?
Mr. Chairman. First of all, I apologize for being late. Ed, does the interest fluctuate, or do they get the same rates?
No, what
Or
we
more of
do-
a high-risk candidate, do they get a higher?
Normally, we provide a fixed rate. Over the period of time, we have found that the best, depending on the sizes of the loans. If in the past there have been some larger loans in the county, LDC had provided some fluctuation in there, but generally we provide a flat rate amortization. What we have done in the past, and other loan corporations do this, is depending on the type of business you're in, where you have some seasonal fluctuation, where your downtime might be in December, January, and February, your uptime in the summer and fall. We have provided opportunities for interest only during those low periods of productivity and increased it a little bit here, as well as that we may amortize the loan over a 7-year period, but a payback of 5 years. So that last payment is a balloon payment and can be rather large. But again, we hope if we're loaning that money, by the time they've been productive and paying our loan on time, they conceivably could go out and borrow that from a bank, or they store that. We just have a case in downtown Glens Falls with Gourmet Cafe, made their final payment, and we had amortized that over a larger period. They made their final payment, which was quite larger than their normal payment. But we give them advance notice and say, if you have some issues, please come back and see us, and they just paid off that loan here. Also in collaboration with that, with Washington County Local Development Corporation and with SUNY, we conduct twice a year a small business enterprise schooling, which goes for about 6 weeks, and we bring in various attorneys, real estate, insurance, business planners to talk about particularly for those individuals that have not had any business experience. They may have been in a employee role but never owned a business. So we think it's important for first-time owners to have this additional assistance and help. And along with that, a very successful program that's been going on for years, and that is through the SBA, is the SCORE program. Those are retired executives from our region that have volunteered their time to work with an applicant who is looking for a sizable loan that needs to require to have a business plan and put together all of their documents. But the key here is while these business executives are there to help, they're really there requiring the applicant. There's sometimes a false impression that, well, we've got this retired executive, I'm just going to turn my plan over to him and he's going to modify it and clean it up and do all the right things. He'll be assistance, or she'll be assistance, but at the end of the day, the business applicant needs to be the aggressor and undertake the application for them. But it's been a very successful program, and many of our loan applicants have taken advantage of that, and some of our loan applicants should have taken advantage of that. One of the other things that we're working on, and we've talked in the past about broadband and the continued support, Senator Schumer is taking an active role. Senator Gillibrand is doing that in the U.S. Senate. Congresswoman Stefanik and Gillibrand have actually teamed up for an increase in USDA funding for broadband. We all know that there are certain areas within Warren County, due to their remoteness, white space may be the last and only alternative. And to date, white space has had kind of a mixed results around the country. When we had some issues locally in one of our towns, that seems to be clarifying itself somewhat. But the most important development has occurred about 2 months ago when Microsoft made an announcement that they are providing substantial funding for providing white space. They're not necessarily going to be looking for government money with this. We met with representatives of Microsoft about 2-3 weeks ago, and they are looking to identify certain areas in the North Country and over in Washington County. And obviously the areas are being picked out is Stony Creek is one of those areas. Thurman is another. Thurman has about 35 units, and the difficulty with white space, it's the unused dial of UHF frequencies, is their speed is greater than dial-up, but in some areas it's not much more than dial-up. And the other is the data capacity is very, very limited. And so Microsoft is aware of those confinements with white space, and are working with their technology people and trying to resolve those issues to increase the speed, because if you're not going to get much more than dial-up, now that for some may be better than nothing, yet in other areas, particularly as schools go to requiring homework to be done online, it presents some other issues as well, and businesses. Currently, with white space that we have in this region, there is a very limited data, and some businesses that use it have very limited abilities on the white space. It's just so small, and local providers of the white space realize this, and I think this is a first very positive step in those areas where there are no other results of having broadband. I mean, broadband itself, without any kind of subsidy, you're talking $15,000 to $20,000 per mile just to lay, the hardware in the ground to do this. So that provides another option for us in our area, and they will be identifying and working with us and notifying us. It's not competition per se. They are looking at this area. They've recognized upstate New York and some other regions of the country, obviously, as key areas for white space development. So we'll continue to work with them, and we'll keep you posted on that area. So our next area is the Albany Business Review will be in Glens Falls for a conference on Glens Falls and the region on economic development on November 17th at the Queensbury Hotel. We'll be getting more information out on that. We're continuing to work with the city on the DRI, and with the announcement that was in the Post-Star this morning, we are awaiting the official word coming Thursday on their identification of location in downtown. Upon reality, there will be approximately 90 to 100 students per semester that will be participating in the culinary school in the downtown area.
When I asked Ms. Duffy that, she said there's 65 students currently in the culinary arts, and that they haven't turned any away, so...
No, they're projecting up to 90.
Okay, they're projecting
Yeah.
it, but they haven't turned anybody away, so...
Oh, no.
They only got 65.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So they're hoping they get...
They're hoping, yeah. That's what they're really building the program on, is, up to, up to 90, and I think...
But the demand hasn't been there as of
No,
yet.
I think you'll see that demand change with the expansion of the location in our area.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks. She said that people were getting turned in, they were not entering because they couldn't get the classes that they wanted.
Well, I think what she said was that they had to they couldn't get all their classes in the exact row. And when I went
Right.
to college, I know that I couldn't get my classes in the exact sequence, as oftentimes, I think everybody in this room, you don't get in the class you want when the semester you want. So when I asked her directly, have you turned away any students, her answer was no. That was...
I do know Peter, first class, SUNY, right? Got
Right. Now,
his preference.
What fine institution did you graduate from?
We're Cardinals. Peter and I are both Plattsburgh State Cardinals.
We both went to Plattsburgh, so I was being a
We're
little
Cardinals.
facetious. So we've got that issue clarified on...
Thank you, Claudia.
I think I clarified it for you, Claudia, though, hopefully.
I think there's going to be more students entering the
I
program.
hope there is.
We'll have more
I
students.
hope there is, but right now there hasn't been, so. I hope there is.
Well,
We all hope.
is the
That's
coffee
always-
half empty or half full?
We always hope there's more coffee.
That's right.
Build it and they'll come.
Pour it, they will drink it.
And we are delighted to work with Lake George, and Mayor Blaze led the team for additional funds from the state of New York for their wastewater treatment plan. Congratulations are in store for Mayor Blaze, and the Lake George itself is the winner of that product there.
Back up one, would you? So, Lake George's got $4.27 million for a grant for the water wastewater. It's my understanding, though, it's 17 to 20 million for a new wastewater treatment plant. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, so there are no 100% grants.
No, my question is that, let me get to my question. Where's the other money going to come from?
The town of Lake George has authorized bonding up to $18 million. They have this, they also received a smaller grant, and there also is a small, when Matt was talking about loans, there is, through the Environmental Facilities Corporation, small grants that are potential through a hardship program, depending if they qualify, and certainly if you exclude the summer residents, it would appear that Lake George Village would be able to qualify for some portion of a grant, and then the bulk of it would be loan. Lake George got a substantial amount of dollars in a grant program, which really doesn't exist. If you flash back when I was just a kid, just to show you the differences, what's happened in the 1980s when the wastewater treatment plant was built, $27 million. The city received $20 million from EPA, $3 million from DEC, and they split the remaining $4 million balance with Ciba-Geigy. So the city constructed the plant for $1.5 million back in the 80s. That wouldn't have happened, but for those monies were available. It was on the Hudson River, and the fact there was a man by the name of Bob Flack, commissioner of DEC at the time. So, but again, there was great grant programs. There was also grant monies for operating cost and maintenance cost that has been wiped off the book. So it's very difficult, and I think that was part of the way to try to force a lot of communities to merge or consolidate their wastewater treatment plants into larger facilities in the area.
I think Supervisor Beatty would think that this issue has got to be solved. One way or the other, it's got to be solved.
120% agree that we got to solve this issue. I'm just wondering where the money's going to come from. I see that's 4.27 in the New York State grant, and I'm just wondering where the other 16 million is going to to come from.
I think that question is best asked to Robert Blaze.
Okay. Does he have that in change in his couch, or is that?
He ran arcades for a number of years. He may have that somewhere. But they realized that. They were obviously hoping for more money, but that's what was the case. That does not necessarily preclude them from going back again for additional, monies and sources to do that. So, on Thursday of this week, the executive director of the Minority Women Business Enterprise, she operates the facility out of the office out of New York City, will be in Glens Falls at a forum. I did send out notices to the board members relative to that you might want to pass on to some of your businesses or contractors involved in it to have an explanation on the program. And I think it would be worthwhile for you, if you are involved with state funds, to understand the program a little bit better, try to get some clarification, as well as those individuals of minority women that are interested in being a certified program through New York State, which has been a very lengthy and frustrating process for people that have been applying, and I think some of the questions will be addressed toward her in regards to that, that particular issue there.
Wayne.
Ed, have you sent this notice? I know I got it in email. Did you send it to SUNY Adirondack?
Yes, I did.
We were called last week by somebody over there, and they just received a grant that had an NWBE requirement. They knew we had some, and so they were trying to pick our brain because they had it through the administration.
No, it's the DRI money that they received and some additional state money that they have, and they certainly, and I talked to Dr. Duffy, and they will be present, for that. And as you know, each grant that comes into a municipality, you get that investment agreement that says what your percentages are for minority women and veterans, and they break it down between minority and women and veterans, and it's averaging in our area about 22 to 25%. Some grants have been even higher, up to The coalition grant is around 33%, which is difficult to match in our particular area up here. But yes,
Ours are 35%.
yeah, that seems to be a little bit high. Also on Wednesday, Lakes to Locks will be having their annual meeting at the Crandall Library in Glens Falls. That is a great regional facility that supports many historical facilities, museums, as well as along the waterworks and canals, in our area, and we work with them with some grants within Warren County.
I just want to mention they are going to be discussing the Empire State Trail.
Yes,
Is what I
that is
saw.
correct. They're
I think that's
having a
interesting.
representative to speak there. If you're going to go, get there early because they reverse the speaking order, and he'll be going first.
Gotcha.
Right at,
Thank you.
right at 9 o'clock. I didn't mean that you're late, but you are.
That was probably a good assumption, though, Ed.
All right. EPA job training, we have this afternoon at 1 o'clock, orientation sessions for those that are unemployed and underemployed today and Thursday between 1 and 2, that they will go through the orientation, and then they will provide us with an application that will be reviewed in conjunction with Chris Hunsinger from the One Stop in New York State Department of Labor. We will be starting this program. The first session will begin in mid-November with about 25 to 30 students. There will be 3 sessions of approximately a total of 90 people that are eligible to go through the program. We are also in contact with a number of employers in the area, alerting them to the fact that this job training is underway. There is random drug testing through our program as well. The individual that goes through the entire 6 to 7 weeks will graduate with about 12 to 13 different certifications from ASWAP to a confined space. Those certificates, if the individual were to go out and undertake these privately through the website or in person, would cost about $15,000. All of that is at cost through an EPA grant, and really provides an opportunity for the individual who has been out of work or underemployed to have an opportunity. We can't guarantee a job, but we do line up and work with businesses that will at least agree to have an interview for those. But again, it's very tough for those groups.
Ed, just an observation on that. It seems to me that the coordination and combination of the Steamfers local and global foundries is a direct channel for really high-paying industrial jobs, which I think are almost could be an example of where the rest of the country ought to go. Okay, I mean the fact that they get trained and off they go into high tech, and people are making some substantial dollars there.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good program. It's a competitive grant. It's a $200,000 grant, and Senator Schumer's been very helpful with obtaining the EPA grants for specifically in the EPA area. And finally, had the opportunity last week to speak to the Warren County Council of Chambers in your budget officer's home town. And he was out. He knew I was coming, so he got out. He got out of town. He was over in a soils and water conservation in Casanova area there. But I had a great opportunity to speak with the various chambers of commerces throughout Warren County, and particularly the small towns and the small chambers, which is very important. Obviously, the role has changed from handing out a lot of paper to digital, but importantly, equally importantly from my perspective, is they really become a point of contact for EDC for economic development. So I spent the time talking about the variety of economic development programs that are available through EDC, just as I spoke earlier this year up in, at the Rotary in Craig's hometown. Craig's president, by the way, of the Rotary's up there. Passed. You got eliminated already out of that? Just 1 year, your term. You're moving there now. Sure.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks.
Make room for Matt to come up
How
there.
many businesses were in the small business school that you talked about at the very beginning?
For the program that we have from SUNY, up at SUNY, they're more individuals. So the individual is probably a class of about 20 to 25. It fluctuates a little bit. There is a little bit of a fee to pay for that, but it's well worth it. And quite honestly, with some of our applications, we require them to attend the school. Due to their, if their first time and their application isn't complete, or their business plan, they're not aware of what a business plan is, we're really not in a position to recommend funding. So they go to that. We also recommend the SCORE SBA. SBA comes up to Glens Falls on a regular basis to meet with them. Also, SUNY Adirondack has a business course that Mr. Westcott teaches up there during the course of the year. I've gone up there and spoken at that course the last couple of years. So what we try to do is to provide as many potential outlets for them to be further educated in the in the program. I'm sure in your line of work you see some people coming in perhaps that are looking to start up a business, and it gets more and more complicated, and we try to be helpful through this program. And we want our loans to succeed at the end of the day. It is taxpayers' money, and while we have more flexibility than a bank, we still have proper guidelines to follow. Any other questions or comments?
Good.
Oh, I just want to mention, you're aware of, we have 3 constitutional amendments. 1 and 2 you can address. Number 3 is what EDC is focusing on, and that is the land bank of the 250 acres. Betty Little worked very hard on that. Dan Steck worked very hard on that from our perspective, to allow in the Adirondack and in the Catskills in certain areas where the road is right on the territorial line, to allow some expansiveness. So if they want to have water and sewer lines, if they want to put broadband in certain areas, if they want to have a bike lane, as an example, a walking lane, this will be very helpful by approving yes, so that you don't have to go back and get a constitutional amendment for up in Horicon for a bike path, if that were a bridge, if that was to occur. And as a result, right now, you have to pass it in 2 consecutive sessions, which means 4 years. It's not, it's each, so that's 4 years away. And while recently we've had some success in improving, there's still a large vote, and people down in the metropolitan area clearly don't understand the Adirondack parks. Many of them still believe that the Adirondack Park is all public property, that there's no private property. Some of your legislators from downstate asked me when I was in Albany on a regular basis, why are people living in the park? They have no concept that this is half and half, public property and private property, and it's very difficult. So EDC has adopted a resolution. I believe the town of Queensbury, John, has.
We did too.
And yes,
The county did.
So I think that's wonderful, and the other 2 obviously deal with removal of pension that Dan Steck led the fight on, and the other is the constitutional amendment, which you can read pros and cons on that all day.
Matt?
I'll just add one thing, and there's no net loss to the forest preserve for that land bank. So that's the common sense part of it.
I think we got some good momentum. It's just really educating downstate on that, on the vote on that, because that will be helpful. And hopefully, if this is successful, we can expand that land bank beyond 250 acres. And there are quite a bit of limitations in that you can't have more than, I think, a mile stretch along a roadway for the land bank purposes. And once Horicon uses up your one shot, you have to move on. That's it. You can't come back for a second apple. So I think there needs to be some further adjustments on that program. But it's a good start.
Great. Anything further? Can we get a motion to adjourn? Supervisor Beatty, the graduate of Plattsburgh, go Cardinals, and
Yes, go
Supervisor
Cardinals.
McDonald, second. All
Go
those in favor?
Thank you.